Sam Hartman, welcome to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great, Dom. That's great. I've got I didn't get any of that like recognition until I got to South Bend, and then all of a sudden everybody started wanting my autograph, and now I can understand why. He's got a lot better hair than I do, and he's got a lot more NIL deals than I do. But I was honored. Our frames are a little different as well, so he's got a couple hundred pounds on me of pure muscle.
Explain this to me. I totally see the resemblance. I texted
Yeah.
CJ before the podcast,
hmm
and he's the one that put that thought into my head. And
hmm
once he texted it, I can't unsee it now. He said Sam Hartman and John Wick are what you get stops for a lot. Any funny stories of this happening?
Well, yeah. So during the Ohio State football weekend, this is actually I've never been more like up here on the mountain of just like, oh man, just feeling really good about myself because my dad and a couple of his buddies were in for the Ohio State Notre Dame weekend this past weekend, and we had practice or we were doing something, and so I told them I'd meet them at dinner later, and so they were sitting at a table at the back end of the restaurant, and so I'm having to walk through a whole bunch of people. And I keep, as I'm walking through, people are kind of turning and looking at me, and all of South Bend is packed just because it's the night before the big game. And so I sit down, and my dad's buddy is just like, Jared, a lot of these people are looking at you. Like, do you know a lot of these people? And I was like, I have no idea who this is. And so I couldn't have sat down for more than maybe 15, 20 seconds. And our waitress comes up and she's like, listen, I don't know football, but I'm getting a lot of questions from a lot of other tables. Are you number 10? Like, are you Notre Dame's number 10? And I just started laughing, and I said, "You have no idea the compliment that you just gave a 140-pound cross country coach. Telling him that he looks like a 200-pound starting QB for the Fighting Irish." So my ego and was my confidence was up there after that, but I said no, and unfortunately, I should have milked it maybe a little bit longer and signed some autographs and stuff like that. But that was the one of the bigger times that I was recognized as Sam Hartman, but everybody else they were all very disappointed when I told them I wasn't Sam after that.
Have you ever seen him on campus? And secondly, have you ever thought about getting a picture side by side, the comparison
I've
photo?
seen him. I saw him a couple times, probably just like from afar, and I it never dawned on me to go get a picture. Maybe I should have run up to him and acted like a big cheerleader, big fan, but I did not think to get a picture with him. But that would have been a funny one. John Wick, like you said, was in one I got recently, and Keanu Reeves is like is much similar to Sam Hartman, is a lot tougher than I am. That's 100% sure.
I
So
don't know if you took
yeah,
enough credit. If you keep rising in the ranks of coaching like you are so rapidly, soon enough, John, I guess Keanu, and
yeah.
what's his name, Sam Hartman, they're gonna start. They're gonna start. People are gonna ask like, "Hey, are you Coach Schatz?" I don't know, man.
They might, and next thing you know, we might all three be in a Head and Shoulders shampoo commercial or something together. So maybe that can be where we all team up.
There you go. You get some NIL money, all that fun stuff. All
Exactly.
that fun stuff.
Exactly.
I
Yep.
do want to ask you this. You're
hmm
reporting live from your hotel in Eugene, Oregon at the
hmm
NCAA championships. What's it like? Reflect 5 years ago when you were still a runner competing. If I was to
Yeah.
sit down with you 5 years ago and be like, you're about to be a coach at one of the most distinguished universities, what would the reaction be?
Well, I mean, it's humbling, and that's probably the word that I would use. I'm humbled. I'm so thankful, to be in this opportunity, and it takes a village, and that's something we always say, and you'll probably hear that, all the way around. I'm so thankful to be here, but I would not be here at all without the great mentors and coaches that have given me opportunities and allowed me to, be a part of this journey. Coach Neal and just being here with the Fighting Irish, he does such a great job with these young men and getting them ready and prepared. And those young men, they got to go and do it and execute. So to be here and watch that is incredible. When I was starting as a graduate assistant at a Division II Central Missouri, and thinking 5 years, 6 years after that, being here with the Fighting Irish, it would have been, I would have said, wow, that's pretty cool. Future Jared looks forward to that. So super thankful, humbled, honored. I mean, just all those words you can think of. And day one started off great for us yesterday. So kind of put the icing on the cake, and we got more races coming up. So just a great experience. And this is the first time I've been here when it's been just sunny weather the entire time. So kind of makes that entire, you know, vibe and just the atmosphere of what's going on over at the track. It makes it a lot more exciting.
Whether it's your athletes or talking with coaching friends and seeing their
hmm
athletes or just knowing other athletes, I think a lot of listeners are curious, like, what's it take to run at the NCAA Division One meet? What's it take to make
Hmm.
it? A lot of people, they watch it on TV, they dream about making it. That was me back in the day. Unfortunately, that was not the
Yeah.
case for me. My talent ran out, hard work ran out.
Hmm.
We're still
Mm.
trying over here to do my best. But what does it
You and me
take
both.
to be excellent?
Well, so it's funny, we actually were talking about this yesterday, and racing, training, all that stuff changes so rapidly, and I think there was this, at least maybe very generally, a always a kind of, when you get to the national meet, you got to be ready to rock and roll, but the 1500s, you got to be just ready to sit and kick, right? It's a sit and kick style race, and same with the 5Ks and 10Ks, and after watching the races yesterday, it took almost the Olympic trials mark to make the 1500 final. It takes the Olympic trials mark to make the steeplechase final. And, all the guys that are PRing to finish, second team and honorable mention All American, just what it takes at, this event now is, even as it did like compared to 4 or 5 years ago, is incredible. And it's great from a coaching standpoint, to have your athletes, they rise to that occasion, and, they have to have their best day at the national meet in order to, leave with more than you came with, and really kind of have that day that you're looking for. But as a fan as well, I mean, to sit back, and even in the events that we don't have athletes in, I mean, you watch those events, and what those athletes are doing is incredible. I mean, the talent that's out there just across the board, across every event, 1 through 24, is amazing. So what it takes to get here is a special thing, and then what it takes to be successful once you're here, that bar just keeps rising and rising. And, it's something that as coaches, we try to adapt to that and figure out, okay, this is what it was last year. Now we got to figure out how can we get back to this point, yes, but then, make sure that we're ready to have our best day when we get to this meet.
What's the conversation like with athletes who come into the NCAA? Because any athlete who makes the Notre Dame cross country track team, they were a stud in
Hmm.
high school. They weren't just the
Hmm.
best in their state. They were probably one of the best in the country, or the
Hmm.
best in the country. You're getting Drew Griffith, so we can say that
Hmm.
in his case.
Yeah.
Of course, when you're the best at something, you enter a new level, and immediately that's your mindset. You don't want to settle for middle of the pack. But the reality is,
Hmm.
with how good the NCAA is, a lot of times that's the case. It's a four-year development, many
Hmm.
times, 99% of the time. How do you work on the mental side of your athletes, of being like, okay, you were the hot stuff in high school, you
Mm.
still are, but it's going to take some time to get there.
Yeah. Well, I think of like distance running as a whole. I think of one word that if you said, okay, when you try to develop a young distance athlete, and even as an athlete that matures, what's something that you try to teach them and try to instill in them? And, patience, I think, is one word that comes to mind for me is, you know, having an athlete, think of a specific race, you got to be patient early, you got to stay focused, but you got to be patient throughout the race, and as a young athlete coming into college, I'd say that's the biggest thing that we try to instill in them and help them, is just being patient with the process, and that's kind of in everything. Patience with certain workouts as you adapt to high school training to college training. Patience with learning, okay, you're going from a 5K now to an 8K and sometimes 10K. That takes a little bit of getting used to. You're throwing in academics in there, and you got to be patient. Just, in high school, you're 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., and you're having eyes on you 24/7, throughout the school day. And, now you get to college and you might have a day when you have one class, and so you have all this free time, and all those things go into just learning how to be a college athlete, and a college athlete at the highest level. So patience is something that when they first come on campus, it's something that we try to instill in them and teach them. It's not going to come all at once, and it's something that it's any athlete coming in. PRs aside, every athlete goes through those growing pains of, has nothing to do with talent, has nothing to do with how hard they're working. 10 times out of 10, they're coming in and just doing such a great job, and working their tails off. There's just that learning curve that comes from, you were in a certain environment for 4 years and now you're entering a new environment, and learning how to handle those growing pains and work through those, valleys and ups and downs. And, so that's something that, we try to help as much as we can, is get them to understand that patience part of, of coming in and being a college athlete.
How do you coach someone who does everything right? They hit all the
Mm,
training right, they do the little things right, and they still
yeah.
don't hit their goal. I think we're at a season after the track season where a lot of kids feel that way. They're like, I
Yeah.
did my winter mileage, I hit my speed workouts, I got my 8 hours of sleep, I still didn't hit my
Mhm.
goal. I'm sick of the sport.
Athletics, isn't it a cruel thing, right? Athletics, there is when you're an athlete, and you know this just from, doesn't matter the level, but when you invest a lot into something, you want to almost have that guarantee. Like, okay, I'm going to invest a lot into this. I want to know I'm going to get this back, and get this in return. And athletics is cruel because, you're not guaranteed that, right? You can do everything, you can do all the things like you mentioned, and check every box you possibly can, but you're never guaranteed anything, and what we tell our athletes, we tell them that straight up, and we try to, have them understand that that's the reality. That's the harsh reality, is that you guys can come in, we can do everything right. You can follow the coaches, you can get your 8 hours sleep, eat right, do all the training, but that doesn't guarantee anything. That only gives you a chance, right? And that's what I think we try to instill to all of our athletes. And what I, try to remind myself, not just in my running, but in life, is that you work hard to give yourself a chance, and that's what's guaranteed, is that you got that chance. But if you don't work hard, the one thing that is guaranteed is that you got no chance, right? So if you come in and you don't try to do whatever you can to check all those boxes and to get your sleep and to not eat right and just hydrate and train, then you are guaranteed no chance. So I think that's the fun thing about athletics, that as cruel as it is, it's the fun thing, is that, you know, everybody's just working for that chance, right? That small chance. Doesn't matter what stage of life or career, or stage of your athletic career you're in, everybody's fighting for that chance, and that's the thing that we try to, again, remind ourselves as coaches, and then try to pass along to the athletes, is that we're showing up here doing it day in and day out because we're all fighting for that chance.
Do you think the fact that things aren't guaranteed in the sport is what makes it so special? Also
Mm,
so painful at times, but it's
it
like,
is.
CJ, he had to work for the final. Like,
Mm,
even though on
yeah.
paper probably should have made it, what makes it
Hmm.
feel special is the fact that he had to work really hard for it. He had to put in all the training. Someone who wins an NCAA title, it's the same thing. Even Nico, if he wins an
Hmm.
NCAA title this weekend, technically on paper he should, but doing it is another thing, and that's what makes it
Mm,
special. But if it was just handed to him, it would be like, doesn't feel special, right?
that's
Because if you
right.
know it's guaranteed, it's not special.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, again, just a combination of that and a combination of how difficult this level is, makes it really special. Like you mentioned, everybody who's at this level, they're talented just beyond belief, and they all put the time and all put the, hard work in, and you see it in these prelims, the margin of error for a 1500 of, zero point zero 0.01 of making it into the final and not making it into the final, right? There's just those small things that, all those guys who didn't make the final, or didn't, leave with an All-American trophy. They did everything right, and just no doubt checked all the boxes they could. And it's, again, it's just that harsh reality of athletics, right? But it, makes it so much more rewarding when that you're showing up. Hey, I did everything right. I'm confident in my ability, and you know I've got just as good a shot as any all these other 23 guys that are lining up next to me, and that does make it special.
Okay, Coach Schatz, you said you're good to go with any direction, and there was a quote I came across, a little story I came
Yeah.
across this morning that I want to read for
Okay.
you and get your
Oh,
get your take and thought on it.
all right.
I was watching a video, I think with like Dana White, he's the president of UFC, super successful guy,
Mm-hmm.
controversial for many reasons, and
Mm-hmm.
he has this quote, at least part of this story, all over his office walls and home walls, and so I looked up the full story, and I thought it was a neat story, and it has to do with running, so.
Mm-hmm.
It's about Bruce Lee. So the story goes, Bruce had me, and I don't know who he's talking about, but said Bruce had me up to 3 miles a day, really at a good pace. We'd run the 3 miles in 21 or 22 minutes, just under 8 minutes a mile. So this morning he said to me, we're going to go 5. I said, Bruce, I can't go 5. I'm a hell of a lot older than you are, and I can't do 5. He said, when we get to 3, we'll shift gears and it'll only be 2 more and you'll do it. I said, okay, hell, I'll go for it. So we get to 3, we go into the 4th mile, and I'm okay for 3 or 4 minutes. And then I really begin to give out. I'm tired. My heart's pounding. I can't go anymore. And so I say to him, Bruce, if I run anymore and we're still running, if I run anymore, I'm liable to have a heart attack and die. He said, then die. It made me
There you
so mad
go.
that I went the full 5 miles. Afterward, I went to the shower and then I wanted to talk to him about it. I said, why did you say that? He said, because you might as well be dead. Seriously, if you always put limits on what you can do, physical or anything else, it'll spread over into the rest of your life. It'll spread into your work, into your mortality, into your entire being. There are no limits. There are only plateaus, but you must not stay there. You must go beyond them. If it kills you, it kills you. A man must constantly exceed his level.
Mm,
Not sure how well I read that. I kind of ran through it because it's a
there
long
you
story.
go.
What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, first off, I'm upset I got my run in before this because now you make me want to run through a wall now hearing a story like that. But I mean, it's true. I think athletics. I've come from an athletic family. My dad was a coach for 30 years, football coach for 30 years, and my brother ran as well. And we always talked about, and my dad would talk about this early, in my career, and we try to, as coaches, try to, explain this as well. Athletics parallels a lot of life, right? When you are fully invested, like a lot of these athletes are, at this level, they are great athletes, but that they parallel each other. Life parallels each other. It's athletics and the classroom and academics and, relationships. They all are intertwined. And I think that's such a beautiful thing of the lessons that we learn of pushing our bodies, especially as runners. I truly believe, obviously, I'm a little biased being a cross country and track coach, but, you know, what distance runners have to do, especially by training in the summer and then competing in the fall and competing in the winter and competing in the spring and then just doing that over and over again, you find out a lot about who you are and the type of person you are. And, by doing that year in, year out and day out. And those life lessons that you learn by just slugging out those miles and those workouts where, like Dana was saying, I couldn't go anymore. I mean, how many athletes have had experiences like that where they get to a rep and they're like, I can't go anymore. And then they just do one more and then they just do one more, and it's the same thing, you do a week, Coach Neal, preaches this to the guys all the time is, it's not rocket science, it's just consistency, stacking weeks, stacking days, and you get to one week and you're like, man, I can't have a week like I did last week. It's just keep doing it and keep doing it. And so, those lessons that you learn from athletics, you can take those to life and you can take those to the workforce. And once that, to use a running term, when that lap bell rings for everybody and it's time to enter the job force and, you know, um, maybe not be the athlete that you were in college, you can take all those lessons that you learned from those days and workouts like that, to the workforce, to your relationship. And I think that's just one of the most beautiful things about running, specifically is, what running has taught me as a young man, and the lessons that it's taught and how I can be a better coach, a better human, a better brother, son, boyfriend. It's, I think that's just an incredible thing. So there's nothing like running, and shout out Dana White for getting after it like that. So yeah, that's awesome.
I feel like in this conversation have kind of sandbagged how good you were as an athlete. So let's give some context to the listener because I think
Oh
they think you're
goodness.
slow, and that's certainly not the case. Take me back in
No.
time to your start in the sport of running and also what your first impressions of it were.
Yeah, so I mean, way back. Not as far back as my athletes like to, as the
I
guys
was
on the
going to
team
say,
like to
way
think
back,
I
you're the
am.
youngest coach I've ever had on. So give
Well,
yourself some
thank you.
grace here.
I appreciate that. The gray hair, I put the hat on to cover the gray hair, but that's coming in. But so running, I always loved running, and loved just the act of running and but I loved sports. I didn't start running until high school. My dad was a football coach and I played football, I wrestled, and then I played baseball, and so those are my three things. And obviously, as you can tell, and again, I'm still shocked they thought I was Sam Hartman, but I didn't have the football physique, to last. My dad played college football, but I'm not built like him or my brother. And so, when I went to high school, I went to a small high school in Pennsylvania where they didn't have football and they didn't have wrestling. So wrestling and baseball were my first two, loves and passions. And so in the fall, I was like, well, soccer was never really a thing, just growing up in a football family. And so, try cross country and, and it was just one of the best decisions I ever made, and will always remember this for the rest of my life. That first run that I did, like we had these summer runs, before my freshman year of high school, and we went like 8 miles, and I had never done an 8 mile run in my life, and I had, I think, basically the equivalent of like the light up, shoes that you'd buy at Kmart, as my first running pair. I didn't know any pair of shoes or what, right type of shoes you were supposed to run in. And so they had to scrape me off the side of the road on that first run, and back in Lancaster and, basically call the ambulance to come and get me. So, that was my first introduction to it, but just fell in love with it after that. And then, just as like I said, we didn't have wrestling at our school, so it was, you just kind of train throughout the winter. And then, I loved baseball, but as I grew in love with, or fell more in love with running, it was, well, you did cross country and you trained in the winter, you should probably do track. And, I'm so thankful to have so many great mentors just along the way. One being my first high school coach, and I had a different high school coach my last 2 years, and he's been just like a father figure to me in the running world, and what he taught me. And so I have great mentors like that early on. It's just such a blessing, and great teammates that are, you know, going to be in my wedding someday. They're just, great men that I could, be with and help me as I kind of was just a young, innocent freshman, and so, fell in love with it in high school, and then obviously just continued that love throughout college. Went to small Division III school, so I don't know if you're a Pennsylvania guy though. So Messiah College, Messiah University now. So I don't know if you heard of that, but small Division III school. Again, just had an incredible experience. I'm so thankful to coach at this Division I level, but I think I'm so grateful again just for my Division III experience, the Division II coaching, and now Division I. You just have so many different backgrounds, to everything. So loved my experience at Messiah, and I'm thankful to still kind of train here on the side, and Coach Neal allows me to do that just in the early mornings, and training for some marathons here and there. So love the sport, and I'll be doing it as long as I can, at the level that my body will allow me to do. But this sport truly is incredible. It changes a lot of lives, and I'm so thankful that mine's one of them.
Recently, we've seen a massive running boom. It seems like so
Mm,
many run clubs that kind of get memed
yeah,
in the circles we're in, and maybe rightfully so, because it's just a bunch of hobby joggers and we're very serious minded, Garmin
yeah.
wearing people with our super shoes who run 6 minute
Mm.
pace. And we make fun of the people who just show up, but it is quite awesome how much running has exploded both in those circles. I lived in Austin last year, and I mean, every night there was a run club, 400 people
Mm,
would show up. I mean, it was ridiculous. And then on the contrary, I think my podcast is a testament to this. There are an odd number of younger athletes who have just become obsessed with the sport of running. What do
mm.
you think makes running so special that makes it stand out from other sports?
Yeah, I think it's incredible. First off, just how big it's gotten. I think it's just amazing in and of itself. And I think running is a sport it's such a simplistic action, right? And I think that is just the beauty in it. And you can have the level. We're at the NCAA championships now, and seeing the talent here is just incredible. And then you can have the other side of it where anybody can go out and do it, right? And it's the great thing. Everybody can have that, for lack of a better term, that NCAA championship, if you will. Everybody can have that goal. Everybody can grasp a goal of a time. I want to run sub 30 minutes in a 5K, or, run a marathon. I can do those things. Everybody has the opportunity to do those things. And I think that's such a special thing where you can have a sport that elite individuals can do, and also in that same sport, the other side, the individuals who are trying to just be healthier, or, chasing a different goal that might be different, obviously, than what these athletes are chasing here, this weekend. But I think that's such a beautiful thing. And, I'm, honored to be a part of that. And I think that's something that allows this community to keep growing, because you can have run clubs where in that same run club, you can have an Olympic trials qualifier, and you can also have the guy who's just starting a couch to 5K or something like that. And they're in the same club, the same running club. And that's, a very unique thing, that this sport provides to everybody, to every single person in the world. Everybody can be a runner, and that's something that, I tell lots of people is that, that never leaves you. You're never, there's that book, Once a Runner, but you're never just once a runner. You put on a pair of shoes, you're a runner, and that stays with you for life, and that's something that is really unique and really special, that I'm so excited for this boom that's been happening, but, even more excited to see where it takes off here in the near future.
Like, let's talk practicals here. Out of
Yeah.
curiosity, I think I asked Coach Neal a similar question. I'll ask it to you
Hmm.
as well, because you were a part of the process. How do you get the 6, 7 guys you got this year? I mean, top recruiting
Uh,
class in the country, in my opinion. I can say that because
yeah.
I'm unbiased. What
Yeah.
goes into getting all those guys to come join you? And more specifically, again, the caliber of athlete that Notre Dame recruits is being recruited by Stanford, by
Hmm.
Oregon, by all the teams with flashy facilities and all, the different amenities and lures. Why
hmm
Notre Dame? What do you think makes it stand out? And how do you get these kids bought into the mission of it?
Yeah, I mean, we're so excited for that group. It's so excited for the future of just Notre Dame in general, and watching Coach Neal and how he is able to, spread his vision and go out. I mean, be able to learn from him as just a young coach has been nothing but a blessing. I could sit here, we'd have a whole podcast about me talking about how thankful I am for Coach and what he's meant to me and how he leads this group of young men. But those young men coming in here, we're very excited, and obviously everybody knows the talent that they are performance wise, and like you said, we're thankful that we're in a spot at Notre Dame where we can go after that type of talent. But one thing that when Coach Neal and I try to say, okay, who do we want to be a part of our team? Who are the guys we're going after? We really want to see, what are they like in that locker room? And that's what we try to develop. And we're so thankful that these group of 7 individuals coming in, you know, they're great young men, and that's something that we're most thankful for. We're most excited about. They came into this locker room and on their official visits, and they just bonded with everybody. It was like they were a part of the team, and it was very cool to witness and watch. Just how our guys who were hosting them and those guys that were on their OVs, just gelled right away. And so the talent is incredible, and we're super excited for everything from that aspect. And from a talent standpoint, where hopefully the Irish are going to be here, but they're great young men who are going to foster the type of locker room that, we want to have. And I think Coach Neal, he says this a lot, and I try to echo it. We talk about X's and O's and all the, stuff that goes into running and the science and all the workout details till we're blue in the face. As coaches, we can do that all day and every day. But, the locker room is really what sells, Notre Dame. And we're so thankful that that success that we've had is a tribute to those young men in the locker room. And, again, Coach Neal just does such a great job at, you know, allowing each one of those guys to be themselves and have them just come together for this collective goal that, it's his vision. And then, I try to spread his vision, but those guys got to adopt the vision, right? They have to buy into what he's selling and, and that's been really, really special to see. So we're super excited. They are a great group. We've got a great young core coming in that we joke with them and saying, you guys are going to have your hands full because those 7 guys coming in mixed with CJ and Dalen, that class there. They're such a great group of guys, and it's going to be just a fun time. I'm very excited just for these next couple years with them.
I don't want to misquote Carlson. It was Carter Solomon quoting Carlson in our podcast,
hmm
and I was asking him about Notre Dame. This is one of my favorite responses that made me chuckle, I think, live on
hmm
the podcast. He was talking about the athletic side, and then he was talking about the academics, and he said, Coach Carlson said something to the extent of to him, he's like, just wait until you meet your future girlfriend's dad and shake his hand and tell him you have a degree from Notre Dame.
Yeah,
He's
it's
like, that's the best way to sum it up.
it's true, and everybody, and I'm so thankful that we were able to bring in the class that we did, and they're a great group of young men. But Notre Dame has a Notre Dame effect, right? Grabbing that degree and being able to go to your future boss and say, hey, here's a degree from Notre Dame, or your future wife's dad, stuff like that. That's a Notre Dame effect, and that's nothing. I don't have nothing to do with that. That's just what Notre Dame brings, and so. It is a special thing. In my multiple physical education classes that I took in high school and non-AP classes, I was never in a position to come to a Notre Dame like a lot of these great guys are. But for a lot of those guys and anybody who comes through the Notre Dame doors, to leave with that Notre Dame degree, that carries a lot of weight. That these guys bust their tails and work hard in running, and to leave with that degree is something that they equally bust their tails with to earn that degree, which is an incredible accomplishment, just in and of itself.
Let's talk to a young girl or boy listening, maybe like a freshman, 8th grader who's listening and they want to
Yeah.
run at a Notre Dame one day. What's the
hmm
path to get there? And what are some things as a coach, as someone who's recruiting these kids, you want to see in an athlete before talking to them, starting a conversation, potentially having them take a visit?
Yeah, it's the bar has just keep getting higher and higher, and the NCAA is always changing, and and what it takes to run at certain levels in certain schools is always changing and always elevating, and so for you know for years, it's simply stated, we always say it, but, it's not rocket science, it's just consistency, right? And I think in this ever changing NCAA world and seeing all of the great performances that are just keep being pumped out by all these great athletes, everybody's searching for that one thing, what's one workout that I can do? What's one thing that I can do? And, in reality, it's not, right? I think everybody, it's our nature to try to find that one thing, that one tangible thing that we can grab onto that's like, hey, this is going to take me to that next level, and it's not, right? It's not rocket science. It's just consistency. It's, you think of it like a puzzle, and, in that puzzle, it's a lot of little pieces that make that beautiful picture. So, you got to take the time and be patient and be consistent to put all those little pieces together to make that beautiful picture at the end. So, to all those young runners and, well, not even young runners, to the old guys too, right? It's just not rocket science, just consistency. And, I think that's something that I always got to remind myself. Our athletes always got to, we try to remind them, and they got to, try to think of that as well, and be conscious of that, it's never one thing that gets you there. It's the sum of everything. It's all those little pieces that make that beautiful picture. So, that was something that my college coach instilled in me early, was that it's not rocket science. It's just consistency and to stay in the course. And, you know, at some point, those things will come together and make that beautiful picture.
You can't talk about the class of 2028 without mentioning Cameron Todd. Specifically, I know he's going to listen to this episode, so I love
Right,
you, Cam,
right.
if you're listening. You definitely are. I hope you're doing well.
Hmm.
He'll listen to this like while doing yard work and crazy stuff.
I'm
So
sure he will. Yep,
yeah, I
exactly.
know. Great kid. Anyways, I can't bring up that class without mentioning that legend. People
Yeah,
who have met him know why I have to bring him up. First time you met Cam, impressions of him, and any funny stories of this guy. I mean, he is one of one. He's
he is.
funniest man alive.
He's incredible. I mean, honestly, like I love being a coach, and obviously the X's and O's performance thing is great, but being able to see the individual personalities of each of these guys is just incredible. They all bring such a special thing to the table. Cam is like you said, one of one, just an incredible young man who we're so excited for. Now I'm from a little outside of Philly, from Lancaster County. So I'm a big Sixers, Eagles, Phillies fan. And Cam's a big Pacers fan, and they kind of did a number to my 76ers this year. So, but from the moment we started recruiting him, he just brings so much life. He's just so, it's contagious. Like it really is. The moment he stepped on campus throughout the entire recruiting process, watching him at races, going to see him at races, he brings so much life and joy that it really is. I'm, on the other side of 30 and, well into coaching, it's contagious, and it's a great reminder of just how special this sport is and how we just got to keep reminding ourselves to keep enjoying it. And that's something that Cam just, it spills out over him of how much he enjoys it, how thankful he is. And that's contagious. That's something that he's going to bring to, every single one of our guys in our locker room, is his love and his passion for it. And I think it's that great balance that all those guys have. They love winning, and more than they love winning, they hate losing, but they're going to enjoy this process at the same time. And Cam is, no different. That incredible family. I mean, him and, mom and dad's just been great to get to know that entire family throughout this whole process. So we cannot wait for him to get to campus, and just beyond excited for Cameron Todd's Notre Dame journey to start here real soon.
Another kid to talk about, Drew Griffith. I specifically
Yeah.
ask you about him because we were in person, witnessed his sub-4 attempt. He ultimately ran 3:57, looking a little too good. And in classic
Mm,
Drew Griffith fashion, first where I chase him on his cooldown, I find him, give him a hug, congrats, bro, and without missing a beat. It's not even like, oh, that was amazing. It's like, I've heard people say this, that they felt they could have pushed a little more in the middle laps. That's the first thing he said to
yeah.
me. Like he
Yeah.
constantly wants more out of himself. He says that after running
Hmm.
the fifth fastest time ever by a high school boy. What was it like
Hmm.
to be in person and witness him, run something truly extraordinary?
Oh man, incredible. Yeah, I mean that's what he's done this entire year has been nothing but incredible. And then how he does that day in and day out. And I think that's the championship mindset, I think is always a unique thing to realize, and a lot of times they say like, well, champions, they just know when to flip the switch, right? And I think it's actually the opposite. Those true elite guys, they really know what they don't know how to turn the switch off. The switch is always on. It's might be dialed up a little higher at some points than it is at other points, but those true great champions, they just never know how to turn it off. And that part of that mindset is, finishing a race and thinking, man, I could have pushed a little harder here. They're always thinking for that next step, and they're enjoying the ride. Like I said, Drew has done such a great job of just being such a, when you're done the things that he's done, he's just such a humble guy, and he's handled this so well with so much grace, and we're just so proud of everything he's accomplished. Um, and he's enjoyed the ride, but always staying just a little bit hungry, right? And saying, oh, there's a little more meat on the bone. I could have done this here, could have done that there. And it just shows you his type of you know, just the mindset that he has, and I don't know if he told you that, but I had the pleasure of jumping on a track with him in the middle of winter and pacing him through a little bit for a race, and he torched me pretty hard. So it was special. I was honored to join. I'd say one PA legend to a next, but he's those guys, him and Ryan, Colin, all those guys, they're the PA legends, and I'm the guy who's just sucking wind through a straw trying to hang on. So, but just that whole class, all those guys, Drew, could not be more excited for what they're doing and everything they're accomplishing. So, like I said, along with Cam, we can't wait for them to be, finally in that Irish uniform here.
I do remember, I didn't know about the pacing thing, but I remember at pre-meet the day before, Drew, and I didn't even know you were coming to the race, but Drew
Hmm.
was just talking about Notre Dame. I don't even know if I was asking him about it. I think he was talking to a few other guys and talked about how he's heard about you running easy runs with the guys and hopping in with different things and like just how cool
Hmm.
that is. I like,
Hmm.
and again, I had heard your name on podcasts with Coach Neal before, but like I was like, who is this guy? And then we met the next day. I was like,
Yeah.
I can see how this guy would hop in easy runs and stuff. Humble yourself a little bit here because I know you're a humble guy. Do you think that is like attractive to a recruit of wow, that the coaches practice what they preach. One of them literally runs with us. I mean, I talked to a bunch of coaches. I don't know of any that do that. Do you think that, and you have like the kind of, and again, I'm unbiased. If I offend people, that's okay. Like
That's
you have the joke of like, when they're like basically post collegiate and they
hmm.
use the term assistant coach to use the facility. That doesn't count.
Hmm.
Okay. As you
Hmm.
said, you're on the other side of 30. You're a legit coach, and you're running with the
Hmm.
guys. What's that like? One, from the like camaraderie standpoint and being a college student again, feeling that, but also just like it is pretty cool. If I was fast enough to run for a school, that's got to be appealing to a recruit of a guy who practiced what he preaches.
I think of it, and I'm so thankful that, again, my body is at the place where I'm still able to do that. That's the thing. Coaches, we keep getting older, and the college athletes that we coach, they always stay the same. Stay the same age. So, as I get older, that will probably naturally just start to wean its way out. But I'm thankful that I get to do it. I never really think of it from a recruiting standpoint, but I love it. Coaching is that's the most important thing. And I'm thankful that I get to train and still compete and and compete here and there. Very sporadically, but I'm thankful I get to do it. And Coach Neal, obviously allows me to do that and wants me to do that. But it's. Uh, I think it just from a coaching standpoint, I think the day after races, it's just great, to go out there and just be with the men as far as, hey, how you feeling? How you feeling after this race? Just really get a feel for how things are. And, I think that's something that I've enjoyed doing it. You get to talk with athletes, and be out there for a long run, 16, 18 mile or whatever it is, just be with them, for that little bit of time. But, you know, I always coach first, I never want to jump in workouts because then it takes away from what I'm trying to do. I want to be able to see him and, be able to say, okay, here's, this is how this workout looked, how they did. If I'm putting myself in there too much, then I'm blurring that line of, coaching and, I'm not an athlete and I'm a coach and want to be that. So, it is fun. I'm so glad that I get to do it when I had the opportunity to pace Drew. I mean, it was fun. I had never put on a pair of super spikes. That was the first time I ever done that, which was I was put those on. It was like, oh my goodness gracious. But so that was really cool. And, then again, just you know, be a part of those guys and, go out for an easy run. And every once in a while jump in a workout with them just to remind, hey, this old guy still got it, but not for that purpose. But, just to be in there with them, it really is a blessing. And I'm excited that I continue to do it. And, I'll have a fall marathon at some point. So, as I continue to kind of build here and build up some mileage, some workouts, hopefully I'll be able to hang on to them in some long runs here along the way. But that's what they always say, like, hey, it's great that you run with this, but I'm like, you got no idea how like I got to almost taper for these workouts and these races or these runs that, I got to do with them. So, they recover very easily. It takes me, 2, 3, 4 days now to recover. So, but it is fun. And again, I'm glad I get to do it.
As a self-proclaimed Philly sports fan, on
Mm,
conversations on runs, do you ever clash heads
yeah.
with the other guys?
Oh goodness. Yeah. I mean, it's, it's a tough thing being a Philly sports fan. You kind of get used to the highs and then inevitably having the carpet, ripped out from under you. So I get reminded of that, very regularly of how much, I'll say, I mean, obviously the Phillies are killing it right now. And so, I like to talk a little bit of smack here and there, but I'm very quickly reminded by a lot of the athletes that we will be a very exciting first round exit, so, but that's now, you know, that just and you're used to that as a Philly sports fan, but so it's yeah, I get a lot of it, and I think that's the cool thing about Notre Dame is we got so many different people coming from so many different corners of the U.S. So we've got so many different fans from every fan group there is. So it always leads to some good conversation, and I try to sit back a little bit and let them go at it a little bit, and thankfully the Eagles have won a Super Bowl within the last little bit, so at least I'm still hanging on to that. I might end up hanging on to that for the next 20 years, but got to see one. So, but they let me have it a little bit here and there for sure.
Fun fact about that Super Bowl win: who is the quarterback? The Philly special, Nick
Nick
Foles. Was that his
Foles,
name?
yeah, Nick
Foles.
Foles. Yep,
I have his rookie card signed. It's somewhere at
really.
my parents' home. Yeah.
There you go. Well,
So
you got to frame that one. That's
I know, I do. I remember telling my uncle that, and he was like, "Sell it immediately after the Super Bowl." And I was a little naive, and I was like, "No, he looked really good in the game. He's gonna come back. He's gonna be
yeah.
one of the top QBs in the country." And honestly, I've not heard of his name since then, but I'll
Well, I
pass it
mean,
on to my kids one day.
that is from a Philly fan. That is okay. He'll never have to pay for another cheesesteak in his life. He's got the statue. He's got the fame and glory, and that was such a high moment. I was doing my grad work out of Missouri at the time, and so was a GA and coaching out there doing my grad work. And the one time that a Philly team, just does it, they win the Super Bowl, and I'm so excited, just beyond excited. And I come back and my two roommates, and they're like, congrats, dude, and then they went to bed, so I didn't have anybody I could celebrate with the one time. And then, now, unfortunately, since then, it hasn't happened, since then. But I promised myself if another Philly team wins it, I told Coach Neal I'll put in my 3 weeks of vacation then because I'm going back to Philly and, celebrating with the
Soaking
people.
it in
So
with the city. Yeah.
exactly. Not
I
missing
will
another
say
one.
that I fought my brother on this so hard. Neither of us were Kansas City Chiefs fans or Eagles
Mm,
fans, although like definitely will cheer for PA teams if my team's out of it.
hmm
And that play, Super Bowl, I forget, I think it was pass interference that was
Yes.
called.
Yeah,
It was not
it
pass
was.
interference. Was it? I forget what it was. Either it was called. I forget the exact play. I just remember completely disagreeing with the officiating.
It
Not to
was
sound like a salty sports fan, but I was
right.
unbiased. I was like, that threw the game. That threw
It
the
was
game.
tough, and my amazing girlfriend she's from Kansas City, huge Kansas City Chiefs fans. A lot of my great friends are Kansas City Chiefs fans, so it could have been any other team that the Eagles lost to, but it had to be the Kansas City Chiefs, where I lived for 3 years, and all my buddies and my girlfriend are from. So I have not lived that down. I probably will never live that down. Seeing as how that one team that beat my Eagles were the team that I lived for 3 years, in that city. So, and they didn't mind, when their team won, and they got to celebrate together. They didn't mind, kicking it back at me, but I was like, where were you guys when we won, 3 years ago? But it was a tough one, but I think they've had a pretty nice off season, and hopefully, I mean, we get it done this year. But I say that I always enter a year with as much optimism as possible. So
As you
my
should. As you
my
should.
optimism is high right now.
Before moving on from this, final
Yeah,
note, crazy stat. Patrick Mahomes has thrown 53 interceptions that have been overturned by a penalty in the last 6 years. The next up is Josh Allen at 7.
there you go.
Enough said.
That's
Proof is
yep.
in the pudding. I don't know. I
We'll
will never
leave
say the
the
NFL is rigged, but I do think they have some special players.
hey, we'll leave
So
that up to up to
people
interpretation.
to decide. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Exactly.
Before wrapping up here, I'm curious to hear super young, super high position, in my opinion, assistant coach at the University of Notre Dame. Sky's really the
Hmm.
limit for you. Do
Hmm.
you feel like Drew Griffith in your role? Young guy, a lot of potential, a lot of
Hmm.
exciting things on the horizon. What are some things you want to do before I don't know what coaches wear these days, clipboard, stopwatch, before you hang
Yeah.
that up? What are some things you want to
Well, I
accomplish
mean,
in the sport?
I think, as coaches, yes, that's our profession. We're coaching, athletes to, we're a stopwatch sport, run certain times, accomplish certain things, win championships. Yes, that's what we are. But, I think a lot of coaches, I hope, would tell you the same thing. We're who we are is a lot more than that. We're mentors, we're father figures to a lot, and we try to be teachers and mentor and develop relationships and hopefully through our sport, change lives, and that sounds, I hope it doesn't sound, so profound, but I hope that, that is something that I got into the sport with. And, that's my true love and passion. Running is, just the pulpit that I'm so thankful I get to use, and I can't think of you know, just beyond grateful to be able to use my passion and use my love of running, as hopefully like I said, a pulpit to hopefully, make those connections and change some lives through running and, of all the individuals who've changed my life through running, so at the end of the day, the championships are great and the performances are great. And we love, like I said, using our outlet of running to change lives through that. But at the end of the day, I would hope and pray that, you know, when I'm done and the stopwatch is hung up and I'm sitting on a beach somewhere, just chilling, that, it'll be because, of, you know, the relationships that you make. And, again, I think one of the best things as a coach is to get those texts and to get those calls from former athletes and to get the wedding invitations from former athletes. I think that speaks so much to the type of relationships that you can build. And, I think I'd be far more, excited for those things, than any type of, trophy or, anything like that, but, like I said, I'm nothing but, a product of just the great mentors and coaches who've mentored me along the way, and given me this opportunity, and Coach Neal and, what he's done for me and allowed me to do, and how he's mentored me here, and Coach Brayman at Florida State, Coach Kirk at Central Missouri, what they've allowed me to do. And, I think as an assistant right now, my time will come as a head coach. I just try to be a sponge, soak up as much as I can, and try to do whatever I can to share their vision and, to make sure that I can help them succeed. So I'm forever grateful for them and just beyond blessed and honored to be in this position.
Coach Schatz, one final question for you. The question I ask every
Yes.
single guest on every single
Oh,
episode.
I've been
You
worried. This is the
ready?
question I've been worried for, because
Okay.
yeah.
If
All right.
if you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house, or I guess we'll
Mm-hmm.
say Eugene Hotel Edition,
Mm-hmm.
what would you choose to make for him for dinner?
Well, so my girlfriend is an incredible cook, amazing cook, and so she has been teaching me how to do that and be a better cook and how to expand my repertoire, if you will, of dishes. I've been on a maybe a little bit unique. I've been on a salmon burger kind of kick for the last little bit, where I, take some salmon, kind of put it in a burger patty, and you know, grill it up, and that's what I've been enjoying. So I love seafood. My parents live by the beach, and I'm a total beach bum, and so always love seafoods, and so been on a salmon kick as of late. So I'd probably make some salmon burgers and grill up some asparagus, and or maybe have some sweet potato fries or something like that. I can promise you that I would not. What's his show where he hands out the apron to make it to the next round or whatever that is?
Master Chef.
Master Chef. Yeah, I can guarantee I would not be given one of those aprons to make it to the next round. But I think if the pressure was on, I'd probably go with my special as of right now, and those salmon burgers.
Coach, appreciate the conversation. Keep crushing it. I can definitely say, based on how much your athletes talk about you, you're making a big impact, not just in their
Mm.
lives, but it's making a ripple effect in the sport as a large. So keep crushing it. Excited to see your journey. Excited for our conversation 10 years from now, where you're the head coach, won an NCAA title, all that fancy stuff. Keep
There you
crushing it.
go.
Looking forward to
Well,
seeing it happen.
thank you, Dom. Hey, and likewise. I mean, I appreciate it. Like I said, what you've given athletes and the platform you've given, just a lot of great young men and women is incredible. So keep killing it. You're doing such a great job. Love following it. And yeah, we'll see you real soon. Always welcome in South Bend.